What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones update video. Today I want to talk about the spin-off shows that I know I am personally dying to see once Game of Thrones ends. It sucks knowing that Game of Thrones will one day end, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel knowing that they have been working on 5 different shows based within the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. At first I wasn't going to make a video about this just yet, but since I saw George R.R. Martin comment on this news himself, I figured I better put it out there. So, I have some good news for you today, and as most of you know, I have been reporting on all of the news revolving around the spin-off shows, so I want to make sure you stay up to date with what's going on during its early production stages. Today's update is compliments of Watchers on the Wall, who I saw post this news first, but Entertainment Weekly revealed some great news today about one of the writers who is helping create one of the pilots for the new series, but George R.R. Martin himself also commented on this news. And what he said made me feel even more confident that not only will we see one of these shows sooner than later, but the new series could potentially be in the hands of someone who truly knows the story as good as anyone else out there. If you stayed up to date with my videos, then you should know that HBO announced they hired 4 different writers to work on 4 different spin-offs in hopes of one of their pilots getting picked up and turned into a successful series. But George R.R. Martin wrote on his Not a Blog that they actually had 5 writers working on 5 different shows, but at the time, George did not want to reveal who this 5th writer was. All he could say was that the 5th writer knew the story better than anyone else, not including himself and Elio and Linda, of course, who all worked on the World of Ice and Fire novel. But today, Entertainment Weekly announced that Bryan Cogman is the 5th writer who is actually working on the 5th potential spin-off show. Some of you may or may not know this, but Bryan Cogman is a Game of Thrones veteran. He has worked on the show since before it ever aired on HBO many years ago. And this news makes me very happy because now we know that they have a legitimate writer working on one of the pilots. Someone who has a firm grasp on the story and knows what the hell is going on. But there is something you always have to keep in mind. Just because they're working on 5 different spin-offs does not mean all 5 of these will be turned into shows. Pilots are made all the time and they never see the light of day, but HBO hopes that with them focusing on making 5 different stories to translate onto screen, maybe one of them will be good enough to get turned into a successful series. But now that I know Bryan Cogman is one of those writers, I am confident that not only will one of them get picked up, but I think it might be his who gets picked. Let me read to you exactly what George R.R. Martin said today on his Not a Blog website. George said, "Truth be told, we've had 5 scripts in various stages of development for months, which I believed I mentioned before. Bryan Cogman should need no introduction for any Game of Thrones fan. He's been part of the show since the beginning. Since before the beginning, actually, since he was first hired as assistant to David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, way before the series got on the air. Before even the pilot had been filmed. From those humble beginnings, he advanced to staff writer, to story editor, to co-producer and supervising producer. Less formally, he has also been Game of Thrones' keeper of the lore, the guy who knew the canon better than anyone, except me, though sometimes I'm not even sure of that. He's written more episodes of Game of Thrones than anyone but Dan and David, including some of our very best ones. If D&D have been the kings of Westeros for these past 7 seasons, Bryan Cogman has surely been the Prince of Dragonstone. You should not expect to see all 5 shows though, at least not immediately. Much as I might love the idea, HBO is not about to become the Game of Thrones network. But we could possibly see 2 or even 3 make it to the pilot stage, with one series emerging on air in 2019 or 2020. And the others maybe later, if they come out as well as we all hope. Then again, maybe, but I should not speculate, you folks get way too excited. Truth is, no one knows, least of all me. For now, suffice it to say that Bryan Cogman has signed on, and we're thrilled. Personally, I think this is amazing news, based on a few different things that George said. First is, George said himself that Bryan knows the history and lore better than anyone except for himself, of course. But this means Bryan knows more about the story than even Dan and Dave, who are the men responsible for Game of Thrones, but I think it's safe to say that a lot of people know the story better than Dan and Dave. But to hear George have confidence in Bryan's knowledge is extremely hopeful that we could get a legitimate show that can stay more faithful to the source material, considering he knows this world really well. But George also said Bryan's series will be an adaptation, and one that will thrill most fans of the books, I think, set during a very exciting period of Westerosi history. and I'll be working with him every step of the way. We're going to be co-creating the show. That also sounds relieving that George said he would work with him every step of the way and they're going to be co-creating the show. Now obviously George is a very busy man, but I want to believe that George will be there with him as much as possible and help guide him to making another beloved show and authentic story. I don't know about all of you, but this has me very excited. Plus George said we can see the show air between 2019 and 2020, and I have a feeling we will get a spin-off show shortly after Game of Thrones ends. I would say within a year of Season 8 ending, we're going to get a new show. And I hope it's written by Brian and George R. R. Martin, that way we get the best show possible. I think HBO is going to want to keep the momentum going by releasing the first spin-off show soon after Game of Thrones ends. That way they don't lose too much of the fan base, but this is just my opinion. So what do you all think about this news? Comment down below and let me know if this makes you as excited as I am to hear this. Also, let me know which spin-off show you would like to see the most. George already said they're not going to be making Robert's Rebellion or Dunk and Egg, so those are already off the table, so it has to be something else. Personally, I would love to see something about the Long Night, or maybe even something about Valyria. I think that would be very interesting, but even something like Aegon's Conquest would be phenomenal as well. I really don't know, there's so many options, and I would actually watch anything they release. I don't care who it's about or what time period. If Brian and George are creating it together, I'm sure we're going to love it. But anyways, just let me know what you think. Thanks for stopping by and watching the quick video. I do appreciate that as always, and I also want to thank my supporters on Patreon. I really appreciate your generosity to this channel. Have a great night, everyone. I will see you in the comment section. Bye.